Have you ever felt odd or disoriented when in a conversation people were either all speaking at the same time and you wondered how on earth they could follow each other's conversation? Or the other person was taking time to respond and you worried that you maybe missed something, that something was off and you had even the urge to fill the silence? Hi, I'm Ute from Ute's International Lounge, and I help internationals communicate effectively across languages and culture. Taking turns in conversations is not done in the same way across languages and cultures. Turn-taking refers to how turns in a conversation or discourse are organized. This usually means that participants of a conversation can speak one at a time in alternating turns. A little bit like when we meet on Zoom. One needs to make sure that the other person actually finished speaking before starting to talk. That is the most universal way to consider turn-taking. In practice, it involves processes for constructing contributions, responding to previous comments, and transitioning to a different speaker when we are, for example, talking in a group setting. And it also involves using a variety of linguistic and non-linguistic cues. But let's focus on turn-taking across cultures because turn-taking strategies can differ considerably across cultures and implicitly also the languages. Two aspects play a fundamental role: the pace or time and the overlapping. In some languages, turns tend to overlap and people seem to speak all at once, and multiple conversations take place at the same time. Those who are used to this kind of turn overlapping conversational style can follow multiple conversations at once. It's a little bit like multitasking. You pick up what others are saying, participate actively in one or two conversations around the table whilst listening to other ones. The pace of these kind of conversations is usually on the faster side, if we consider the pace of conversations like a continuum. In other cultures and languages, conversations happen in a way that when one person speaks, the others listen, don't comment, and sometimes don't show any sign of agreement or disagreement. In this kind of conversations, a silent moment between one turn and the other can have different lengths. And for those who are more comfortable with this kind of conversations, having time to think about the next turn, about what to respond is necessary, and if not allowed, can lead to feeling upset, disoriented, excluded from the conversation, and not considered important to participate. You can imagine the effect that this can have on business negotiations. One thing to be aware of when observing different turn-takings and silences in conversations is that whilst in one kind of conversation the thinking about what to reply happens whilst the other person is talking, in other kinds of conversation the thinking actually happens mainly after the person finished speaking. In this latter case, it is a sign of respect to take some time before responding, as it conveys the message that one was actively listening. It is something that we can learn. There are strategies to keep focused during conversations that have a different pace than the one we feel more comfortable with. I know that my patience and readiness to adjust to the other pace heavily depends on the topic, the circumstance, and the people, the person I'm talking with. In formal settings, I don't have problems to adjust my pace of thinking and participating in the conversation. In informal settings, though, this filter seems to disappear, and I wish I could just use my very own pace and way to express myself, no matter the language. There is one very useful habit called Backchannel, which consists of giving feedback that we are following what the other person is saying through eye contact. This, of course, if eye contact is something that is accepted in the other culture. We can also say things like, wow, yes, I see, yes, of course, exactly, or nod. By doing this, we not only show that we are following and listening attentively, but it also helps us to follow a longer discourse in another pace and keep focused. And what do we do when we use different languages? When I participate in multilingual conversations, let's say when I speak, for example, English, German, Italian, and French in a multilingual setting, adjusting the pace and the use of silence in between turns to the different languages requires some training. But this is actually one of the advantages of being multilingual. We can switch from one way to have a conversation to the other. Nevertheless, even in this kind of code-switching situations, we can have a certain baseline, which is a predominant tendency that is like the starting point towards what we are ready and capable to adapt to. So when my baseline is a communication where the pace is slow and the turn-taking takes place with longer silent periods, in between the different turns, adapting to a fast pace and multiple conversations at once requires more energy and time to adjust to. And I might not even be able to adapt to this kind of communication style at all. And this is why my conversation partners need to know that, so that they can also meet me maybe halfway. How much should we adjust to other people's pace and communication style? And is there a style that is better? There is no better style. Each communication style and turn-taking style has its right and reason to be used and is effective in given situations. What I suggest my clients is that when in international or cross-cultural settings, we should agree on a conversation and negotiation style. This includes the pace, of course, and many other aspects of intercultural communication that I will mention in other videos. We can talk about what kind of communication we expect and feel comfortable with, whether we are fast talkers and like overlapping turns, or we prefer finishing our sentences before anyone commenting or adding to the conversation. On this continuum, this latter one, where people let finish the others before replying, is the more conventional one, the one that people usually can adjust easier to. We can avoid misunderstandings and negotiation failures by addressing this topic in a way that doesn't intimidate or expose the other partners of the conversation. We can train this and raise the awareness of our partners and colleagues so that nobody feels excluded or jumps onto conclusions that lead to building walls instead of bridges. How can we now address this in a multilingual or multicultural relationship? With our partners and friends, we can address this aspect the same way as with colleagues. The way to communicate differs across languages and cultures in all social settings. In a multicultural and multilingual family, for example, chances are high that we use different ways to take turns, use silence, as well as non-verbal communication, etc. In our family, we have several ways to take turns, and this leads to attrition, especially when we are tired, upset, or in different moods. Sometimes we just can't slow down the train of thoughts, and because we easily forget what we wanted to say, and if you can't say it in the moment the thought came up, it's just gone. And then sometimes we see that the other person needs time to reflect, and we have to find a compromise that works for both. It's a cultural and individual thing, so we shouldn't take it personal. Adjusting to different paces of speech, turn-takings, and silence is part of learning about intercultural communication. And this is what participants of my workshops and trainings get to experience. Now, how is this for you? What pace do you prefer in conversations? And what kind of turn-takings do you feel most comfortable with? Do you notice differences when talking about specific topics or when in different settings, more formal settings or less formal settings? Please let me know in the comments. And please don't forget to subscribe to my channel to get notified when I publish a new video.